Hello investigators, and welcome to the spoiler-free unboxing of the Blob that ate everything. Like the Labyrinths of Lunacy, this features an epic multiplayer mode, allowing you to play this with dozens of players at a convention or other gathering, and we recommend that you do. As such, we suggest that you don't watch this video, but instead check out our top 12 spoiler-free questions video instead. It is a standalone scenario that was originally released at the Gen Con gaming convention in the US in 2019 and was included in the Arkham Knights kits that were run in select countries towards the end of that year. It is expected to have a retail release in the same format in 2020, so you can find copies on eBay until then. A standalone scenario is a self-contained adventure where all the cards you need are included within the product, so you won't need any of the encounter sets from the core box. This makes it great for playing at an event, as you can just bring your deck and tokens and don't need your entire collection. It also means it doesn't contain any new player cards for deck building, although there may be some story assets. You can play this on its own as a one-off game. You construct a deck using the standalone rules that are on page 19 of the rules reference that allow you to put in experienced cards in return for additional weaknesses. You can also slot it in between chapters in your ongoing campaign as something called a side quest, where you use your existing deck and chaos bag setup. Each investigator will need to spend 2 experience to do so. This comes in the larger size plastic blister pack, which is typical of the recent standalone releases. There is no QR code on the rear because there are no player cards inside. If you check the base, you will see this is a category 1 plastic, specifically polyethylene terephthalate. This is the plastic used to make 480 billion plastic drinking bottles every year, and so it is 100% recyclable. So if you aren't using it for storage, please make sure it does get recycled. Like all FFG blister packs, it is sealed by a clear sticker at the top, which is reusable providing you do so sparingly, but it should stay closed under its own weight unless you drop it. This type of pack is called a clamshell, as it is all one piece and flips open like so. On the top is a 24-page stapled booklet with all the instructions you need for this scenario, and there are a lot of them. Below this are 2 packs of 40 cards which come shrink wrapped. They are spoiler side out, but if you flip them over, one has an encounter back and the other has a player card back. Remember, these are story assets and not for use during deck building. We hate spoilers here at the Arkham Chronicle, so if you aren't going to be setting up and running this adventure for others, we suggest once more that you stick to our spoiler-free top 12 questions video. Having said that, we will now leave the majority of the images unblurred. You have been warned. This is a 24-page booklet that consists of 6 sheets folded and double stapled. On the front cover is the blurb from the back of the box and expansion symbol. When playing this at events with players you don't know and with player cards now having encounter card backs, it is more important than ever to make sure you check your cards before putting them away. Page 2 lets you know how you can play it with a single group of 1 to 4 players as usual, or with multiple groups in epic multiplayer mode, and tells you where to find the rules for this. It also describes how to play in traditional standalone mode and gives you the 2 chaos bag setups for standard or hard difficulty. Note that all the standalone scenarios only have these 2 difficulties, not the regular 4. On the next page it tells you how to integrate this into an ongoing campaign. In short, you pay 2 experience and use your existing decks and chaos bag. Finally, it says you may impose a time limit, suggests 180 minutes, which is 3 hours, and tells you what to do when the time runs out. Your average convention slot is 4 hours, so having 3 hours of play plus an hour for admin and setup is a good call. Even when playing at home, we would always suggest using a time limit, as this is an extra tool to ratchet up the tension. Over the page, there are 5 new rules entries, including new keywords unique to this scenario, and a summary of story cards for anyone who hasn't encountered them before. Next up are the instructions for epic multiplayer mode and how groups interact with each other, including a helpful example. One of the cool things about this scenario is you don't have to wait for all the other groups to catch up every round. Then you have 2 pages of tips for event organisers, which is excellent game design. Practical things like using a whiteboard to keep track of the changing stats. Page 10 breaks down the encounter set symbols and explains how you will use 3 out of the 4 sets depending on how epically multiplayer your game is. And finally on page 11 you have the read aloud story text setting the scene for your investigators, which continues onto page 12. Pages 13 and 14 and 15 are the setup instructions with a suggested placement diagram, and these incorporate directions for both modes of play. One of the unique selling points for this scenario is the Blob eats everything, which includes your snacks, drinks, mobile phone and even the lighting, as we found out at our Arkham nights. This random effect is selected by drawing chaos tokens and looking them up on a 4-page chart. There is very little about how this works in the rulebook, but cards you draw in play will prompt this. We aren't going to spoil the surprises. Then you have the scenario resolutions, of which there are 2. These are labelled 1 and 3, which is great because clearly the Blob devoured the second one, right? That's really funny, except they issued an FAQ entry to correct this. Sports. The inside cover has the Blob artwork and the rear has the credits and playtesters, who seem to be mostly FFG employees anyway. This pack contains the same type of scenario cards as most other adventures. A scenario reference, agenda, act, location, some story cards, 2 versions of the Blob and some encounter cards and story assets. If you play with your cards unsleeved or sleeve them to play and then unsleeve them when done, then you can store everything you need in the pack. To be honest, how often do you play each standalone? But if you store everything sleeved, then there is no way it will fit comfortably back in the blister. Remember, packaging is there to keep the contents safe during shipping, not for your storage convenience. If you store the cards logically, separating out the encounter sets, it would be easier for you to grab the cards you need for the particular mode you are playing and set up. Be aware that this scenario is a high-stakes end-of-the-universe type deal. It is not a simple trip to Venice to pick up some sweet masks. If you are wanting to insert this into your current campaign, it's not rocket science to figure out if the universe ends, so does the rest of your campaign. Just saying.